third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Redpath's on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
Welcome back to the first Stupid Money podcast of the new year. Alec and Alex here. We have a lot to get into, actually. We were talking maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and we're like, we're going to have to do an episode soon, and had no idea really what we were going to put into a half hour, I guess. And then a lot has happened over the last couple of days, and something happened right before we got on here. So I guess we'll get into it. Phillies made a lot of bullpen moves in the last I guess going back 2 weeks, because Kimbrel was announced before Christmas, but with the holidays and everything, like they never formally announced it until a couple days ago. So Philly signed Craig Kimbrel to a 1-year deal, and then added Gregory Soto, the 2-time All-Star with the Tigers, in that trade. To me, it's like an MLB The Show trade where you take like all your bench players and like throw them in a trade and somehow it works. That's pretty much what that trade was. And then they just traded Eric Miller, the somewhat promising lefty arm in the minors, for Unar Munoz. Is that his name?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm making sure I'm getting his name right. But another one, or Marte, not Munoz. Munoz is on the team. Marte. Marte. Yeah, so a lot going on here, a lot with the bullpen pretty much. But, just start with that Soto trade, because I think it's the biggest story. So they get Gregory Soto, hard-throwing lefty. Now, I guess you saw that tweet. The Phillies have the 2 lefties that made up 81% of 100 miles or more pitches last season. So a lot of gas coming out of the bullpen. An Alvarado type, in a way, I guess is the best way to put it. Throws hard, stuff is insane, but the whip, the control's a problem. Almost a 1.4 whip last season. So, they took care of Alvarado. I think the plan is that they're going to try to do the same with him. But Vierling, Maton, and Donnie Sands all go back, which I was I don't know why the Tigers didn't want an arm of any sorts. That was kind of weird, but yeah, just kind of what are your thoughts on that trade? It was kind of a weird one, and what went back in a way.
Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty happy about it. I think we're finally seeing them being able to trade from like depth almost, because if you look at the rankings from prior years, like Vierling and Maton were never like top prospect wise, and it's not like they didn't pan out. They came up and overperformed for their ranking in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's finally gotten to the point where the Phillies their mid-tier prospects actually are able to perform relatively well to get a return or get interest throughout the league. So honestly, my biggest thought was everybody seemed to like, from last year, they loved the chemistry with, especially Vierling and Maton seemed like the little brothers of the locker room, and everybody kind of loved them, and they gravitated towards the older guys, and they kind of formed like a little clique with the older guys. So honestly, my biggest thought was breaking up the locker room more so than their production, because Maton would probably play 30 or 40 games, depending on what they did with him when Bryce was out, if they DH him or anything. And Vierling was the 4th outfielder, and you're not really expecting him to go in there and hit a ton. So if they're just looking for him to play good defense and give Schwarber or Castellanos a day off in the field, they could easily do that with Guthrie or call Rojas up with the glove and the running ability. So they're not really losing too much, and their lineup's deep enough to overcome it. So I think it was a really good move.
Yeah, like you said, it sucks when you lose some depth like that, but it's at the point where you kind of got to make those moves. The 4th outfield thing was what was interesting to me, and I think normally no one would care who the 4th or 5th outfielder was, but with Bryce Harper out until I don't know, June, July, and then probably not playing the field until late August, September. Who the fourth outfielder is matters a lot with this team. You just brought up Guthrie and Rojas, two guys from within the organization who I think will probably be given a shot. I would assume they also have Jake Cave, who they signed. I don't know what's going to happen there. I like the idea of Rojas just because of the new base running rules that are going into place this year. The bases are bigger. The pitcher can only throw over twice per batter. So the chances of stealing go up. And Rojas is probably the fastest guy in this organization. I think if they wanted to get some speed out there, bat him ninth with Turner one, get those two guys on base together, like that would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he has to hit to get on base. So, if that going to happen, I don't know. But, in theory, that sounds good. But, yeah, there's also a bunch of options out there. I mean, we talked about Adam Duvall before, and Tommy Pham is out there. Those are kind of the two big name, like fringe starter outfielder guys available to go after. So I think that's kind of the last big move, if you want to call it a big move, that the Phillies need to make, is getting that fourth outfielder problem addressed, just because, we see Schwarber and Castellanos aren't exactly the best defensively, and we don't know when Harper could play the field. So to me, that is the one remaining thing that needs to be kind of cleared up here.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Duvall. He
Mm-hmm.
really good last year, but in 2021 he won the Gold Glove. So
Yeah.
I think he has a cannon for an arm, and he could still move well enough in the outfield that it'd be an upgrade over Castellanos or Schwarber if you want to give them a day off. And he's shown he knows the division pretty well. He's been in kind of a revolving door with Atlanta and Miami the last few years, mostly Atlanta, but the bat does have power. It's just the swing and miss and the contact's not necessarily there. But I think he'd kind of fit with how the lineup currently is. I know everybody's calling for more contact, guys that could get on base in front of the, say, home runner butts like Schwarber, but he's similar to kind of how their lineup's already structured, and he'd be a better fielder. He'd be an upgrade there. So
Yeah.
I think he'd be relatively cheap, and I think that'd be kind of the perfect way to finish off the offseason.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's the one thing that if we can get that, I'll be pretty happy with the roster going forward. Let's talk about Craig Kimbrel. 1 year, $10 million, I think is the deal. Yep. 34 years old, left off of the Dodgers playoff roster this past year. I mean, the numbers weren't terrible, like 3.75 ERA. WHIP was a little high though, it was 1.3. It was the least amount of saves he's had in a full season since he got in the majors. So he was 22 of 27 in saves. Kind of, I don't know what role he's going to have on this team. I don't know if it's the closer. I don't know what you think. I mean, Soto also was the closer in Detroit, and he's 50 of 56 in career save opportunities. So I don't know where they go, who's going to close, what's going to happen, but I don't know if it's Kimbrel.
Yeah, honestly, the Kimbrel deal scares me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you said the numbers weren't bad last year. I don't remember them exactly off the top of my head, but I did see a tweet either the night of the signing or the night after. He was really, really good last year, except against the Diamondbacks. Like
Yeah,
his
I did see
numbers were
that.
even
Yeah.
better if you factor out just like a couple blow-ups against the Diamondbacks. So that was interesting. And then going towards your next point with who's going to be the closer, his numbers are really bad if he's not the closer.
Mm-hmm.
So when they did the signing, I'm like, they'll just stick him back there in the closer role where he's comfortable, and they'll kind of just do what they did last year as far as deploying Sir Anthony and Alvarado with matchups where they see fit, and kind of just taking out the heart of the order with those guys and then letting Kimbrel handle the ninth inning. But Soto kind of changes everything in my mind, and it gives them more flexibility with, like last year, Alvarado was really our only power lefty. And then the next night, if he's out, if you're giving him a day off, you have to rely on like Brad Hand. And that was like horrifying in the 8th or 9th inning when lefties were coming up. But now you have two guys from the left side that throw gas and are pretty good as far as matchups go. And then you have the depth with the righties that you don't necessarily have to be afraid of when you use Sir Anthony, because if you want to use him in the 7th or 8th, you still have a righty with experience that could go out there in the 9th that performs better in the 9th. So initially I was really scared as far as the Kimbrel deal, where they were going to put him. But now with the Soto, I feel like they just have depth, and the roles won't really matter as much just because they have so many guys that can perform back there.
Yeah, the depth is the big thing, and I think it's something that the Phillies learned from the playoffs. I mean, even the Padres, who the Phillies handled pretty easily in the playoffs, they had a deeper bullpen than the Phillies, and it kind of showed at times. And then obviously you saw what happened with the Astros, where pretty much every guy coming out of their pen was firing 97 plus, and it was hard to touch those guys. And I think the Phillies saw that, and they made an effort to get more power arms in there. No more Brad Hand and Corey Knebel throwing 93 max and hoping that the movement does it for them. I mean, that's just not how bullpens are made anymore. So that was a little surprising why they got Kimbrel, because he kind of is teetering towards that category.
Yeah.
But I get kind of wanting to have a veteran presence in there. I mean, now these guys just went through their first postseason run, but there's not many closers out there who have pitched in more games. I actually, he probably is the active leader in saves and appearances and all that, considering how long he's been around. I would assume he's up there. There might be some older guy I'm missing, but
the only other name I could think of is Jansen, but I don't even know when they I don't know how they compare years wise.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of the reasoning there, just getting someone who knows what they're doing at least. I don't know with Kimbrel. That's one. It's gonna go either way. I feel like they could either get an absolute steal of a season out of him, or it's like a midseason DFA like Familia or something. Like I don't know.
It's like 10 million seems like a lot, but it's a 1-year deal. So if they already they're over the second tax, it doesn't really affect other moves they would have made. So it is what it is. You just hope for the best. And as long as he ditches the Frozen intro song, I think it'll be fine. But
yeah,
if he does that and the first time he blows a game, I feel like people will kind of be at his neck.
Yeah, I mean, if you think going back with his career with the Braves here, everyone loved to get on him with the stupid thing he does before each pitch, and he was getting taunted behind home plate. And yeah, I don't think he's the same person as Papelbon, but I could see that kind of heading in the same direction with the fans just because of the past history, I get. And I don't think it was ever like actual like harmful history. It was more like playful in a way, but I could see it kind of going back and forth there.
He seems much more subdued than Papelbon.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know there. So kind of a couple weird rumors, I guess we got to get into. The Devers thing that we talked about last time is gone. He signed a contract extension with the Red Sox. That doesn't totally surprise me. I'm a little surprised he wanted to go back, because they do not look like they have any plan whatsoever with what their future is. Like, the farm system isn't that good. They have a bunch of corner infield DH types on that roster. Like, I don't know what the roster construction is. It's very weird, but good for him. He got a lot of money not coming here. And then a couple days after Christmas, a weird Mike Trout rumor came out where he's like, if he would get traded, like he'd prefer the Phillies, the Yankees, or the Mets, with the Phillies as like the top destination. Obviously, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen for the Phillies. I don't know how you work that. With all the outfielders they have, and the amount of money, like insane amount of money, it's just not going to happen. I don't think. The only way I could see that happening, like they'd have to put Hoskins in the deal, and Schwarber would have to play first base. Or like I don't know how that would work, but it would be fun to think about. But kind of this is like the Devers thing. Like, we spent 20 minutes talking about how like we don't know how that would work with the roster. This is like that on steroids. I just don't know how it would work with the roster. It's fun to think about the lineup, but between the payroll and where everyone's going to play, that makes no logical sense at all, unfortunately.
No, and I saw one with the whole Correa nonsense. I saw one
Mhm.
it was one of those fake MLB accounts on Twitter, but they were like, "Oh, the mystery team that's talking to Correa is the Phillies, and they have an agreement in place." My biggest takeaway from the three rumors that have kind of broken out is that the Phillies are finally they've always been a big market, but
Mhm.
they're finally relevant again, that people will tweet out or talk about players wanting to go there because they're a good enough team that they think they could win there.
Yeah.
So the last year has brought us back into the rumor market where anybody will just make up a rumor with the Phillies and hope they're right and just try and get credibility that way.
Yeah, that is what it seems like. And of course, the Mets are also seemingly always involved in those fake rumors, we're going to call them, because of Cohen not really caring about any sort of tax whatsoever, as if this Correa deal ever gets finalized, which it hasn't. Because last time we spoke, we were kind of on, I don't want to say doomsday, but we were kind of talking about, what could the Phillies possibly do to counter that. And we're here, almost 3 weeks later, and Correa is not actually signed by the Mets because, as it turns out, just giving the guy more money, or actually less money, your money first, the Giants' money isn't going to make his physical better. I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know what they were thinking, that what their X-ray machines are different. I don't know what they thought they were going to see that was going to be different from what the Giants saw, but that's a funny one. So he's still technically a free agent, I think. I don't know what's going to happen there. It sounds like the Twins actually want him back.
Yeah,
I doubt he wants to go there, but
I think either way he'll probably be a Met, because
mhm.
if the Mets deal falls through, then I think it'll shift from the long-term 12 or 13-year deals to one or two, or a 2-year contract with an opt-out. And at
Mhm.
that point it just becomes a bidding war, and Cohen's not going to lose. He'll offer him 50 million for 2 years. It's who cares?
Yeah.
To him that's pennies, and it'll be off the books in 2 years, so he won't have to worry about it anymore if the ankle gets worse. I think either way he'll be either a Met or in our division if Atlanta gets involved.
Yeah, everyone keeps talking about Atlanta as like that possible dark horse team here. To me, he doesn't take me as like an Atlanta signing, just
No.
because one, they like to rip their players off, and you're not getting that with the Carlos Correa Scott Boras duo. That's just not going to happen. And second, I doubt the injury thing. If teams like the Giants and the Mets are against it, a team like the Braves, which always seems to err on the side of caution, is definitely not gonna get involved there. I don't think. I think that's just a lot of Mets fans that have like Braves nightmares, kind of
Yeah.
making that up in a sense. But I get it. But no, I don't see that one happening. So to close out here, I saw two videos in the past week that interest me, and one was by Ballcap Sports, who I watch all the time, and he did like one thing left for each team to do, and I can't remember if it was him or Robbie Hyde who did the second video we're going to talk about. But the first one was, as we just talked about, the fourth outfield thing. He brought up the Phillies possibly signing Luke Voit to play DH every day, or be on the bench some days when the Phillies wanted to move some stuff around, but play, I don't know, 50-60% of the time as the DH until Harper came back. And then if he's on a 1-year deal and Hoskins is at the end of his, contract or arbitration, I guess, before he has to get a contract, at the deadline, the Phillies can pretty much pick which one they think is having the better year and trade the other one and have that one play first base when Harper comes back.
I don't love Voit, and
Yeah.
I was thinking, or I saw this somewhere the other day. I saw that they should, or somebody suggested that they should handle the DH route by giving JT a lot of the
Yeah.
early DH days just to save his legs for the stretch run, because he caught a lot of innings,
Yeah.
and he's on the Team USA for the World Baseball Classic. Will Smith's also on the team, so JT should not catch
Mm-hmm.
because he caught 20 more games, maybe 25, 30 more games than any other catcher last year.
The innings was insane.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah.
So somebody suggested giving Stubbs a lot of the early work catching and letting JT DH just to get off his feet, and then putting him at catcher when Harper comes back for the stretch run. But back to Luke Voigt, that does nothing for me as far as if we're talking DH between him or Hoskins, you know what my thoughts on Reese are, but
Right.
I'm taking Hoskins 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I that was interesting when I saw it, and I don't know, it made kind of sense. But to me, and this is kind of something we brought up, like Duvall, and I was on the Frazier, who signed with the Orioles earlier, because you kind of want someone who's versatile with this team, because they don't want the DH spot kind of clogged down by someone. And I saw on our last video, someone commented Nelson Cruz, and that's like absolutely no. No, like it cannot be somebody, to me, it cannot be somebody who's locked into the DH spot, because there's too many between Real Muto, like you just said, Hoskins, Bohm. Harper needs the DH spot, we think, for at least a month after he comes back. Castellanos and Schwarber, there's too many DHs on this team to have someone locked into that role permanently, which is why a versatile guy is kind of, I think, the move they'd have to make. So yeah, I don't think Luke Voigt, but as you mentioned with Real Muto, kind of putting him at DH a lot more early in the year, I was kind of surprised they traded Donnie Sands then. Now maybe they think Marchand is still good, but like this time last year, I know we were talking like the Phillies had like the deepest catching in baseball with Real Muto, Stubbs, Sands, Marchand, and Ohapi, and they traded a lot of it now. And I know those moves made them better, but like now it's kind of the point where a lot of depth is gone. So I guess they hope Marchand's back and starts in AAA, and it's kind of that three catcher. And because there's a chance he could have to come up if, we'll see how Stubbs handles a lot more, an increased workload, I guess.
Yeah. I know they drafted a catcher last year or 2 years ago that has been playing pretty well in like rookie ball and high A ball, but he's still a ways away. So yeah, they're relying a lot on Marchand as that third guy, and he's just been injured so much that I don't know how you could do that, because once upon a time he was their top trade chip going into last year, and that just never panned out because he just always happened to get hurt.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see what happens at catcher there as the year goes on, because it's a position you like to have depth at, because guys get banged up. I mean, we saw JT play through a lot of stuff, so that is something to keep an eye on. And then, so the second thing I saw, and I cannot remember who posted this video, but it was landing spots for Trevor Bauer, and the Phillies were the first team in the video. And it was kind of like, I think it was Robbie Hyde who posted it. I can't remember though who posted it when I watched it, but the reasoning pretty much was you have enough veterans in the clubhouse to police it. You don't need him to be an ace because you have Nola, Wheeler, and Suarez. Like and Walker. He's pretty much going to be your 4 or 5 if you take him. So if his ERA is like 4, that's pretty good for a 5 who you don't have to pay much because he's still getting paid by the Dodgers. And then if you kind of get like pre-suspension Trevor Bauer, you're getting like a 2 or a 3 for the price of a 5. And then they're like, look, if it's a problem, you could just cut him, and you have Painter and McGarry there. I mean, I get it. This is tough because the Phillies have a lot of Boris guys, and Bauer does not get along with Boris guys. So I don't even see him wanting to come here. And I also don't know. The Phillies have Trey Turner, who was with the Dodgers. Now, they weren't there together, though. No, they weren't, because he got no. See, I saw someone post this, and they were totally wrong, because they were like, if they want Trevor Bauer, just ask Trey Turner. And now I'm remember they weren't there together. So
Turner got there 2 years ago, and Bauer got there.
No, Bauer. So Turner got there at the deadline in 21, and that was right around the time that Bauer got suspended.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they've not played together there. So I saw that on I think on Bleacher Report. It was like on the community page. It was like ask Trey Turner, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's like no, you can't ask Trey Turner. So I had that in my mind, and now I just realized no, they never played together. So forget that. Trey Turner is not going to help in these discussions either anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see them doing it though with all the Boris guys. And look, I don't know if you Bauer. A lot of people don't like him even without this situation. No, this situation is always weird to me in a way because he never got charged with anything and he got suspended for 300 something games. And there's guys that actually got charged with like domestic abuse and stuff, and they got like 40 games. It's very confusing what baseball is going for with that. It made no sense, but a lot of people just don't like him. Like there was that whole thing when he was in Cleveland where he threw the ball over the over the batter's eye and all that stuff. And I don't know. He's an interesting person, I guess is the best way to put it. But I think with what they have going, they don't want him to come in and possibly do anything to ruin it. I still think he's a talented player. He obviously he's had a lot of time off, but I see post stuff on YouTube like he's always like in live game settings and stuff, like working out. I think he's in decent shape, but I know that the Phillies are kind of being linked to him, but I don't see it happening.
I don't see it at all. I feel like just removing him from like the situation that he was in just on paper, the only reason that I think it would make sense is one, like you said, the Dodgers are paying him, so you wouldn't necessarily have to. And two, everybody's kind of talking about Painter potentially being up to start the year. You have to limit his innings somehow, especially with the way that we anticipate them to make the playoffs and go on a run again. You have to limit his innings, so they probably won't bring him up to start the year, or if they do, they'll be very cautious about how they use him, which is you can't really put a guy in the rotation and then be like, yeah, you're going to pitch every like 2 or 3 weeks. So I just feel like if Painter comes up, it'll probably be in around the All-Star break, if not later. So Bauer would make sense in that, filling the 5th spot if you don't love like a Falter or a Christopher Sanchez, which Falter showed flashes last year, but I think it's safe to say at least you and I don't love Sanchez.
No, not really.
But I just don't think I don't think they'd get themselves involved with the Bauer situation. I feel like they've done a pretty good job as far as changing the organizational culture with eliminating their ties to Odubel and Familia, who've had kind of run-ins with this type of situation before. So I don't think they'd go right back into a situation like that after they just got out of 2 of them.
Yeah, I think that is the big thing here with that. I think it has less to do with his playing ability and more with the PR side of things, which I get. It makes sense. So I don't know. If he was good again and didn't have all this more baggage than usual, I guess is the best way to put it, because he always has baggage, it seems. But it'd be interesting to think about him in this rotation. But no, I don't see it happening. I think he's gonna hang around, honestly, and then if like some team has like a big name pitcher go down, like they're gonna bite the bullet and sign him. I think that's what's gonna happen with Bauer. Because I think a team is gonna have to reason with its fan base in a way, like as to why they're signing him. And obviously, if like a big name pitcher on any team, you name the team, their ace goes down, like the fan base might be more willing to accept it at that point. I think it's kind of what's going to happen with Bauer. I don't think it's here though. That's for sure.
Yeah. And kind of unrelated, but somewhat related. The Dodgers have just had a really weird offseason, kind of just revolved around one, like their players currently, and two, their fans. Like the rumor was that they were releasing Bauer, obviously one, because of what had happened, but two, like the players weren't comfortable with him coming into the locker room after what had happened, which is like good for them. Like if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. But like two, they didn't really get involved in Correa because their fans weren't happy about his involvement in the scandal when they beat them in the World Series. It's like, I don't know if that's completely true or if that was just a rumor, but still, for such like a power that they've been the last few years, it was just so weird to see them like this quiet. And it seemed like a lot of it had to do, one, they might be waiting for Ohtani next year, but two, it seemed like they were really trying to just make sure that everything was good culture-wise from the top down, from the organization to the fans.
Yeah, it does seem that way with the Dodgers, and I get it because they've had over the years, I guess, some guys that have been a little crazy. Bauer, obviously, but yeah, I see that. I do, and I do think that they are waiting for Ohtani. It is weird to watch them and like totally sit out in off season, like one in which there was 4 like MVP caliber, maybe not Swanson, but 4 all-star caliber shortstops out there, one of which was on their team.
Yeah.
You had DeGrom, Verlander out there, Judge. You had all these guys out there that you would just assume would be linked to the Dodgers, and they went 0 for 10 pretty much on all the big names. So that was just weird to see. Their lineup actually is not that good. Like it's Betts and Freeman at the top, and then if Muncy bounces back and Will Smith. But other than that, it's like a lot of question marks. So I'm interested to see what the Dodgers do. Maybe they're quietly working on some big trade. I feel like they clearly need a bat more than a pitcher. But yeah, even if they are waiting for Ohtani, like to totally sit out a year is just very weird to see from them.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, if they're going to do it and sit out this year, because it seems like the Padres are all in, so it sucks for them as far as losing ground in that kind of the rivalry, especially with how the playoffs went for them last year. But I mean, you'd rather, I guess, maybe lose in an off year than go all in and still lose to them and kind of give them the complete upper hand in their little West Coast rivalry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So last thing I want to get to here then, bad news, I guess, in a way. Jim Salisbury randomly tweeting that he's no longer with NBC Philly, and then like 2 days later breaks the Soto trade with the NBC Philly background on his Twitter, and it was just funny to see. So yeah, hopefully Jim sticks around because obviously he just broke the Soto story, like the best that they have on the beat here. I know he's a little older, so I'm interested to see what happened there. It didn't sound like he got fired or anything from NBC. He's like probably the best employee there, honestly.
Yeah,
so,
you couldn't fire him.
Yeah, so a little surprised. We'll see what happens there, I guess. But if he at least sticks around like a freelance spot and still is breaking stories like that would be great. But definitely gonna miss his podcast though.
That was just so bizarre because I was just driving back to Pittsburgh and I stopped to get gas and I was just checking my phone. And I saw that he tweeted about the Soto trade, and he still had like the profile picture and everything. And then like 2 hours later, I got back and unpacked and everything, and I went on Twitter to like investigate more, and his profile picture was like changed.
Yeah, he changed
like,
everything.
Normal. And everybody's like, "Oh, it's like your ex posting pictures 2 days after the breakup." It was just so bizarre, but
yeah,
I guess he had to get one last kind of Jim bomb in there before he went on his way.
Yeah, that was a good ending. That was funny though. It was really good to see. And last thing on the Soto thing, 'cause I forgot to bring this up. 3 years of control though on this guy. So
that's the big part.
Yeah, and he's gonna be 28 in a month, I think. So they're banking on the future here, which is nice because obviously Kimbrel's gonna be a one and done, and then I could honestly see Craig retiring after this year. But so that was good just to get someone who you're gonna get some years out of, which makes parting with Bierling and Maton a lot easier, especially if they can figure out Soto's control like they did with Alvarado. And I mean, look, this is a guy that was 50 of 56 on saves for his career anyway. So whatever his problem was, it really wasn't that big of an issue for him. But I guess we'll see how that goes in the coming months in spring training. He's going to be kind of one of the top guys I'm looking at to see if he makes any improvements.
Yeah, the 3 years of control are definitely the biggest thing because I know we talked about it a little bit the last pod as far as not wanting like a Kimbrel or something, maybe inquiring about like Emmanuel Clase from the Guardians, and we talked about how it's not realistic because he's definitely better than Soto.
Oh, yeah.
But like 4 years of control, like nasty stuff. Like realistically, we thought the price would probably start with one of our 3 pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they could do the Soto trade from positions of depth and like Maton and Vierling, who were probably going to contribute a little bit, especially at the start while Harper was down.
Yeah.
But ultimately they were in like a positional logjam. The fact that they could kind of do that trade for that price, I think it was a really good deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Cody Clemens also in the deal. He's gonna be like a utility guy, I guess. I don't know much.
Well, I guess he hit in the minors, so
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what if Kevin Long could fix him too.
Yeah, I guess we'll see with him. So kind of an add in there, just so the Phillies got to fill some of that utility depth they were losing. But I guess we'll see if they do anything else with that 4th outfield spot, kind of the last remaining move for the Phillies, unless they do something crazy with the 5th pitching spot, which I don't think we see coming. No. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you next time.